ruling junta has given foreign companies until the end of May to submit proposals and a timetable for the construction of bauxite refineries. Colonel Mamadou Doumbouya on Saturday told industrialists to do this before the end of May and to ensure all raw materials used in the manufacturing process be produced locally. The junta head also warns that foreign companies that violate the refinery construction deadlines will be penalized. With an estimated 7.4 billion tons, Guinea has the world's largest reserves of bauxite, a mineral used in the manufacture of aluminium, which is essential for the automotive and food industries. It is also the second largest producer. China imports about half of its bauxite needs from Guinea. However, the benefits to Guinea from bauxite mining and other abundant natural resources such as iron, gold, and diamonds are notoriously disproportionate. Experts cite insufficient investment, lack of essential infrastructure such as roads, and rampant corruption as factors that have hindered growth.
Something massive just happened in Africa, and the entire Western world is in shock. The heart of global manufacturing has just been ripped out. The planes that fly, the cars that move, the cans that store your food, and even the laptops and phones you use every day. All of it depends on one key resource: bauxite, the lifeblood of aluminum. And that lifeblood flows from one powerful African nation, Guinea. But now, Guinea has had enough. In a historic, unprecedented move, the Guinean government has officially cut off all $7 trillion worth of bauxite and iron ore exports to the U.S. and Western allies. The result? Absolute panic in the West. Factories are freezing operations. The aviation industry is grounded. Aluminum prices are skyrocketing. Even tech giants are scrambling, unable to source the raw materials needed for chips, car parts, and batteries. The West calls it a crisis. But in Africa, it's being called a revolution. Because for decades, Guinea's red soil has fueled the growth of Western nations, while its own people remain trapped in poverty. Now, the tables have turned. For the first time, Africa is saying no. Guinea is no longer willing to sell its minerals for pennies while billion-dollar profits flow to the U.S., France, and Europe. The new leadership in Conakry has declared, if our minerals build your wealth, then they must first build ours. And that single statement, bold, defiant, unapologetic, has changed everything. Across Africa, leaders are watching and cheering. Across the West, CEOs are panicking. And across the world, people are realizing Africa is done being exploited. The United States imports nearly 70% of its bauxite from Guinea. Without it, America cannot make aluminum, the metal behind airplanes, cars, buildings, energy systems, and tech products. This means Boeing halts production. Tesla can't roll out new vehicles. Apple struggles to secure components. Even Coca-Cola and Red Bull are hit, because aluminum cans are suddenly gold. And all this chaos stems from one powerful act of defiance, from one African nation saying, enough is enough. But this isn't just about economics. It's about history. It's about centuries of extraction, of colonization disguised as trade. It's about Western corporations taking Africa's riches, leaving behind empty promises and broken communities. And now, in 2025, Africa's awakening has begun. Guinea's move signals a seismic shift, the birth of a new economic order, where Africa doesn't just sell raw materials but builds its own industries, its own processing plants, and its own future. From gold in Mali to cobalt in Congo and oil in Nigeria, the same story is spreading. African nations taking back control. And Guinea? It's the spark that's igniting the fire. This is not just another trade dispute. This is economic independence in real time. The global economy runs on metals, and among them, aluminum reigns supreme. It's in your car doors, your plane wings, your computers, and even your kitchen foil. But aluminum doesn't exist in nature. It's refined from bauxite, a reddish or found abundantly in one place, the Republic of Guinea. With over 25% of the world's known bauxite reserves, Guinea is the beating heart of the global metal supply chain. For decades, that bauxite flowed endlessly to the United States, to Europe, and to China. Western companies like Alcoa, Rio Tinto, and Hydro built their empires on Guinean soil, earning billions while local communities saw little more than dust. But 2025 changed everything. After a wave of Pan-African reforms and the rise of new nationalist leadership, Guinea announced that it was ending all export contracts with Western nations until new fair trade agreements were established, ones that prioritize local refining, African ownership, and value addition. The new plan? Instead of exporting raw bauxite, Guinea will now build its own aluminum refineries, process the ore locally, and sell finished aluminum directly to African and BRICS markets. In other words, Guinea no longer wants to be a supplier. It wants to be a manufacturer. This announcement triggered immediate global shockwaves. Wall Street went red overnight. Aluminum prices soared to record highs. And in Washington, emergency meetings began as major industries realized what was at stake. The aviation sector was the first to feel the hit. Boeing and Airbus, dependent on Guinean aluminum, had to halt production schedules. The automotive sector followed. Ford, GM, and Tesla faced shortages that forced price increases and production delays. Even consumer goods companies, from beverage giants to smartphone manufacturers, reported supply strain due to the sudden shortage of refined aluminum and iron ore. But while the West panicked, Africa celebrated. Guinea's decision was backed by Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, who applauded the nation's courage to break free from colonial-style contracts. Within days, the African Economic Sovereignty Alliance, AESA, a new coalition of African nations prioritizing local control over resources, pledged investment into Guinea's new refinery projects. Meanwhile, China and Russia moved quickly, offering infrastructure support, rail development, and processing technology, all on mutually beneficial terms. For the first time in modern history, Africa was setting its own terms, not begging for loans, but demanding respect. This move wasn't spontaneous. It's part of a grand strategy spreading across Africa, a movement towards resource nationalism, where African nations assert ownership and control over their minerals, oil, and energy. And Guinea is leading that charge. The West is terrified because Guinea's action threatens to inspire a domino effect. Imagine if Congo stopped cobalt exports, if Mali restricted gold trade, if Nigeria limited oil to Western markets. The global economy would be forced to restructure, with Africa holding the cards for the first time. For decades, Western economists have argued that Africa's resource wealth is both a blessing and a curse. But now, it's proving to be a weapon of liberation. As one Guinean minister put it, "We will no longer dig our graves to build your empires." And that message echoes across the continent. From Accra to Addis Ababa, from Johannesburg to Bamako, a new generation of leaders is rewriting Africa's destiny. Meanwhile, in the U.S., political pressure is mounting. Energy advisors are calling for emergency trade talks. Lobbyists are pushing the government to secure new suppliers. But none can replace Guinea's reserves. Even Canada and Australia, traditional mining powerhouses, can't meet global demand fast enough. So the West is left scrambling, paying triple prices, while Africa finally reaps the rewards of its own soil. At home, Guineans are celebrating a new era. Refineries under construction promise jobs, infrastructure, and modern industries. The streets of Conakry buzz with optimism. People are saying, "We finally own what's ours." And that, perhaps, is the real story here. This isn't just about minerals. It's about identity, dignity, and destiny. It's about Africa standing tall after centuries of economic domination. Africa's message is clear. No more cheap contracts. No more silent exploitation. No more wealth extraction without empowerment. Guinea's stand is not an act of defiance. It's a declaration of sovereignty. And in that declaration lies the seed of a global transformation. Because when Africa wins its economic freedom, the world will never be the same again.
Welcome to African Spotlight 24, your premier source for news and current affairs from across the continent. We're glad you're here. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe, like, and turn on notification to stay up to date with the latest news and analysis. Your support helps us reach more people. Disclaimer: the content of this video is based on credible, publicly available information and is intended for educational, analytical, and informational purposes only. African Spotlight 24 does not promote hate, violence, misinformation, or political unrest. Our goal is to deliver thoughtful insights, highlight local voices, and encourage informed conversations throughout Africa.